Okay, so in practicing, one of the first things you need to do, if you have material, and generally you will, even if you're kind of going off the cuff, you're going to have an outline of what you want to do and where you want to go. Pre-read that material every time. You're going to want to look at it, make sure you know it well. You want to edit the material, make sure that you're saying it in your own words so you're comfortable with the material. Confirm pronunciations. Make sure you triple check pronunciations so that you know you don't want a little thing like a mispronounced word to discredit you or what you're doing. You want to make sure you know how to pronounce names, places, any words that you have in that copy that you're not familiar with. Make sure you've got the correct pronunciation. And then emphasis and inflection. Pre-read, mark words where you want your voice to go up or you want your voice to come down, rise or fall. Be an effective storyteller. So be sure and pre-read and mark your copy every time. And then what you don't want happening when you're on the air, when you're up here presenting, is this. People just hearing blah, 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 blah. They don't even know what you're saying because you're going too long or you're talking too much. Timing is everything. And when I say that in broadcast, everything is timed down to the second. What you don't want is for them to tune out. Most copy is 14 lines to a minute. If you don't have the opportunity to time out your talk, at least estimate how long it will be and watch the clock. It's better to leave them wanting more than to wish you had stopped talking a long time ago. Do not open that mic until you prep. So what do you need to do? You need to be conversational. Who are you talking to? One person, one-on-one conversation. Talk to your friend. Then ask this question. Who cares? Ask, would I care? Empathize with your audience. If it's not important, don't say it. Be passionate, especially if you're handling the powerful Word of God. If you are invested, you'll keep his or her attention. And be patient. You're going to make mistakes. Whoops, I'm going to stop them. Let's see, you're in the back? Okay. Be patient. You will make mistakes. It's okay. You're human. It just makes you more relatable to the audience and to whoever's listening to you. It's how you handle the mistake that makes the difference. If you make a mistake, don't dwell on it. Just move on. Now, Professor Chuck is going to come and talk with us about the next part of this, which is kind of getting real and speaking technique. So I'm going to let him take it from here, and you're going to need a mic.
Good morning. I hope you're doing very well. It is so very good to see you all here. How many of you have ever been to a Media Institute before? Anybody? Anybody been? Welcome back. And we are just so excited about you being here to share what we believe is one of the most important things that we can do if we are called to share ideas with people electronically. You see, each and every one of us have gifts, talents, and callings. Do you know what I mean? It's scriptural, isn't it? Every one of us have been given gifts, talents, and callings. And they're given to us by God. Now, you may have a gift of singing. I do not have that gift. Anyone who has ever heard me sing know that I do not have that gift. However, I do have the gift of management and entrepreneurship. And so I like to share that with people that I know and who have potential to reach many people. Now, before I get too far, I want to take this opportunity to introduce someone who is about to walk out. I would like to introduce him just so that you know him, that you see his face, and that you have an opportunity to shake his hand later on and get to know him. We have and Christian media from around the world, and we get together. Every year in different places around the United States. And we have a CEO, someone who leads us, and basically visions where we're going. And this young man has decided to come and to share with you today, and I'm looking so forward to it. This fellow is right in the back. You can take a look. That's Troy Miller. Troy, would you like to say just one or two words?
Well, I will be talking later more about just generally broadcasting and teaching tomorrow on some specific topics. But I just want to say I'm honored to be here. I'm privileged to be here. And as I said to the group who weren't here last night, this was my first trip to Nigeria, but it won't be my last. I've fallen in love with this country and you people, so it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, are you ready? Are you ready? Yes. Are you ready? Yes. Okay, I want you to buckle in right now. Come on, buckle your seatbelt, because we're going to be going very fast. And we want to share with you some very key principles about how to communicate over the air. Okay, now that's
like a couple of weeks ago, and these were both real posts to LinkedIn. I just liked the one on the right a lot better because the kids were younger, there was empathy connected, and I just felt like that was a better use of design. So I think I need to wrap up, and I'll just close with the last little couple of examples here. That was the last one actually right here. Again, how are you going to read all of that text in a LinkedIn or Instagram post? It's just too much information on the left. Can we make that better versus the two on the right, which are a little bit better in terms of how they convey information? So I know that was a lot to absorb in a very short time. Was it helpful? Did it make sense? Okay. That just helps me to know that I'm connecting. Thank you very much. That ends our first session. Is our moderator here, or do you want to just bring them up? Okay. This is my colleague, Jeff Wilson, coming up, and his session is called Visual Storytelling Through Photographic Composition.
Thank you so much, Vic. All right, as Vic mentioned before, my name is Jeff Wilson. It's an honor to be here again. This is my 4th year in a row in Nigeria. Yeah? I love it here. I love the atmosphere. I love the warmth. I love the hospitality. Everyone here is so nice to us, which is why I keep coming back. In fact, my 2nd year, I was given an Igbo name by the staff here. It's Ugo. Yeah. know, I'm very proud of that one. So anyways, my name is Jeff Wilson. I'm the co-founder of the Wander Studio. It's a mobile production studio, and we travel around the globe doing photo and video work for a range of companies, mostly outdoor brands and nonprofit organizations. And what you'll probably notice throughout my presentations is that I love being creative. Almost all the photos that you'll see throughout my presentations are my own. But I also love the technical side of creative, which is why what I'm gonna show you right now through composition. Photographic composition is a technical technique that is gonna help you and your creative eye make those photographs and everything better for visual storytelling. So what is visual storytelling? It's a story, but it uses visual media, such as images, video, illustration, animations, and to help tell that story. So those visual elements together are used to engage and connect with the audience. That connection is used to create a deeper understanding of that story and to create an emotional impact. So if you see a photograph of a story, you're more likely to have an emotional connection with that because you're seeing what the story is actually about. You're seeing the subject. You're seeing the tribulations and everything that's going on. So now let's talk about how to take a powerful photo. So first, there's a clear subject. Just like in any written story, any book you've read, a good book has a clear subject. You want the same thing in your images. Next, you want to direct your viewer's eye to that character. If you're reading a book, you're not talking about everything else and avoiding the character. What you're doing is you're bringing the audience in closer to that character, closer to that subject, closer to what you're wanting to talk about. So within photographs, you're trying to draw the viewer's eye in the exact same way. And a lot of times that utilizes compositional techniques, which is what we'll get into in the next slides. But I don't want to avoid this, is a good photograph is simple. You don't want to overcomplicate things. Just like with a good story, you don't overcomplicate it with facts that aren't necessary or, and in this case, images or objects within the screen that are not necessary. The best thing about composition, so the number one thing is that that's in your control as a photographer and that is entirely free to you as a photographer and as a creative is composition. It's not the gear you have, it's not the camera, it's not the gimbal, it's not a tripod, it's none of that. It's the composition. It's what you're seeing and what you're being able to perceive through not just a camera like mine that you might see me walking around with, but your phone, just like this, or the camera here that is shooting this day to day. But at the same time, composition can also make a photo bad. If you have bad composition, it might ruin your entire photograph. So composition refers to the placement and relationship of elements within a photograph. So where is the picture taken? What's the environment? Where are we? What angle? Are we shooting from down low, up high? Are we shooting eye level here? What's the distance? Are you really far away? Are you providing an environmental shot, a wide shot? Or are you closing in? Are you really bringing the eye into that subject? What else is in the frame? I mean, what's behind the subject? What's in front of the subject? So those are the three main things. I kind of touched on them there. The three main things to think about for the best composition in photography. First is lighting. Second is layers. Like I just said, what's in front of and what's behind your subject that you're talking about. Next is the space. That's the space around your subject, but also the space that you have that's where your eye is being directed to as a viewer. So what is the space within the photograph? In fact, Vic touched a little bit on it, but I'll go into more detail. So I'll go into detail about lighting first. Where is the lighting coming from? As a photographer, you should be constantly assessing this. You're not going to be taking a photograph if I'm completely in the shadows and the sun is out here, because you won't see me, right? So if you're inside, where's the window? Maybe you need to move your subject or move yourself as the photographer to utilize that window and have light on your subject. Maybe it's an artificial bulb. Maybe we've got lights like back here that are illuminating the speaker. I'm the subject right now. So they're illuminating me right now. And just like I said, where in respect to that light source is your subject? Do you need to move them or do you need to move yourself? And I typically don't work with artificial lights. I mean, so this is considered an artificial light or any of those big strobes. Why? Because I'm usually traveling around. I can't carry that. So you need to keep that in mind as a photographer. If you're traveling and you're making these great distances to do photography, do you need to carry lighting equipment? Or do you need to be mobile? Do you need to do that? So if you were mobile like me, I'm usually always looking for ways to utilize the sun. So you might have to find a white board or like a white sheet like this that can either diffuse the sunlight or a whiteboard that might reflect the sunlight to me. Next up, layers. So we live in a 3D world, right? But what we're seeing in print is 2D. So we need to make that connection with the viewer, with the audience. How do we make that photograph that's two-dimensional into a three-dimensional piece? You usually use foreground and background. The subject is typically in the midground, but you can always change that. So with that in mind, foreground and background need to be applicable to that subject. If I was to photograph a doctor, right? It wouldn't necessarily make sense for me to showcase a doctor that's sitting in a movie theater. It doesn't make sense to us. He's not doing operations in a movie theater. He's doing operations in an operating room. So more likely, I'm going to be photographing that doctor right here in an operating room, maybe with a table or with his equipment behind him, maybe with an equipment piece in front of him that shows a depth of field there. So using that to add context to the photo and to add strength to that subject that you have there. Vic mentioned it before, but depth of field. You might blur what's in the background to create that depth of field and bring your subject towards the front. What is in focus there? That subject is what's in focus. What's behind him? Yes, it provides context. Yes, that operating table provides context to the doctor, but it's not the most important thing. So you might blur it a little bit using a lower focal length. Last up is space. So you want to lead that viewer's attention. You want to lead that viewer's attention to that subject right there. This kind of is a good question that I think you have to ask before any type of photographic endeavor is, how much space do I have to work with as a photographer? Am I in a closed-off room, or do I have this huge open field that's like behind us? Do I have that entire area to play with? Second, it's the space around your subject that's within the frame. So that space, just like with the layers, should compositionally lead your viewer to that subject. If you lead your viewer to the outside of the frame, where it doesn't make sense, that kind of creates tension there. You're not really expecting it. And you'll see that a little bit more with like the rule of thirds. Lastly, this one's just kind of a good rule, is keeping the edges of the frame clear. So if you're photographing a sports player, like a football star, and they're kicking the ball, but part of their body is going out of the frame, like their hand, compositionally, that's going to throw off the entire shot, because you're saying that's not a complete person, that's not a complete subject. Here's just an example to showcase kind of one little photo shoot that I was doing with this woman in Okaitum. So the first, it's a good shot, but that lighting from the sun is really, really harsh on her. You can see there's a hard shadow on one side of her face. So the story itself was a softer piece. We're trying to talk about this woman in a soft light. So I wanted to turn her around, and I used a reflector, like I said, a white sheet or a white reflection screen, and it reflected the sunlight back at her nice and evenly. Second up is background. If you notice in the first one, the house is behind her. I don't mind that. The house is part of the story, but you can kind of see it on the screen, but there's telephone wires going behind her head. That really throws things off, because that's something that's incongruent. It's not providing to the subject. So I wanted to take those out and show her. It ends up being more rural, so that's the second photo. You can see that there. Well, next up is space. Vic talked about this a little bit. Right there, she's in the center. That's great if it's a vertical piece, but I might need space to add text, and I might need space to make it an asymmetrical balance, so a rule of thirds. So that's that last photo there. So I'll go into the rule of thirds. I mentioned that a couple of times. Vic mentioned it in his previous presentation, but that's where your photograph is divided into 9 equal parts using 2 bars and horizontally and 2 bars vertically to create a 3 by 3. It's standard and simple. It's one of the most common rules or guidelines of composition. So the rule states that it's best to put your subject at the intersection of one of those 1/3 lines. At the intersection of any of those lines is a good point to put your subject for asymmetrical balance. This is because threes, and this I'm not going to get into this, but in psychology, this is because threes is a very impactful and appealing number to human beings for some reason. So you can go into a psychology class later and kind of discover more about that. This is just an example that you can add grid lines, not just in a camera, but within your iPhone or your Galaxy or Samsung, anything like that. You can add grid lines into your camera so that you can always take a shot. And I highly recommend doing this. I've been doing this for years, and it really helps me compositionally. Even though I know it in the back of my head, now I don't have to think about it. It's there. It's reminding me every single time I'm taking a photograph with my phone. In a similar light, balance. We just talked about asymmetrical balance. So that's down in the 3rd bullet, where various items of different weight, they have different parts, all right? They're providing an asymmetrical balance to that photograph. But we do have symmetrical balance, where both sides of the frame are identical or very similar. You can see that down at the bottom photo. These rows of trees are leading down to our subject there. It's even on both sides. The subject is centered in the middle. That's symmetrical balance. That top photo there, it's also symmetrical balance, but it's actually using 3 colors to create that symmetrical balance. You're going from a green to a white sand to a blue ocean, but yet if you split it down the middle, it feels symmetrical to you. I do want to state that the exception to that is negative space, where say you've got your subject there and nothing over to the side, and that's very useful in photography as well. It has its own purpose that can provide a lot of strength to that subject, but also kind of isolate your subject. It can be used for power, strength, or weakness. Kind of mentioned that with the trees in the last photo where they're leading your eye into the subject, but lines are extremely important when it comes to photographic composition. And in design, just as Vic was mentioning, he was talking about lines within a page like that. You can have vertical lines. So the vertical lines that keep things aligned right there, kind of like a tree, right? It's a symbol of growth. It's a symbol of confidence. Horizontal lines down here, that's like the foundation of a house. It's the horizon. It's what you know. If you're out at sea, a lot of people get seasick. I mean, I know my wife really gets seasick. What do I have to tell her to do? To keep her eyes on the horizon. That's a line of stability. That's going to keep her calm, just like a foundation to a house. In the design page, if those were off, you feel like that's unstable. It's the same thing with a photograph. In contrast, if you have diagonal lines, you can use that on purpose. So if you have those diagonal lines, yeah, it creates instability, but that's that tension. Maybe you want that in the photograph. Maybe you want to show some tension there, that this is a high stress environment. Maybe that's the story that you're telling. Implied lines, just like in the photograph here, the implied lines are items of the environment that create those lines that aren't actual lines. I mean, you've got columns, you've got the ceiling tiles, everything is leading to that subject there that's on that 1/3 line. Leading lines, just like I mentioned, lead to that focal point. Next up is framing. I don't even have any words here. You can just kind of see. I'm going to go through some examples here. These are all, a lot of these first two are product photographs that I had to do for brands. The one on the right, that is a laundry detergent. I framed it around a coffee table and then I've had that frame within another frame on top of a laundry basket. That draws your eye in to what is that product. Then I have it's a vitamin supplement that a lot of athletes use, a lot of bikers. So what I used is I used the wheel of the tire to frame that supplement to really showcase it. Next up, a little construction piece here. I used the actual framing of the construction to frame that construction worker because I wanted to talk about how they are doing as a construction team. Last up is I had a glove brand that I was working with, and I used the frame of this vehicle to showcase the rancher that was using it, but he's out of focus. You can see that, but that's drawing your eye towards what's in focus, and that's those gloves. That's what he's using as a rancher. So if you're a rancher and you're seeing this photograph, you're going to be looking at those gloves. mentioned angles a little bit earlier, and this one's really important. This is a very, very important aspect of composition. So if you're shooting overhead of something, it translates to vulnerability. If you've ever seen a photograph of like a puppy when it's new, you get that photograph and it's looking up at the camera and you're seeing those big puppy eyes. And you're like, that is cute. It's vulnerable. It needs something to take care of it. It needs you to take care of it. Please adopt me. That is a very good example of shooting overhead translating vulnerability. Shooting from below, have you seen a lot of political figures when they're up on stage? Somebody's taking the photograph right here, and it's showing them, and it's showing power. It's showing that they are there and its strength. Next up is shooting eye level, which is that middle photo right there. This woman was actually sitting down, and she was at a medical mission. And to me, I want that viewer and that audience to connect with her, to feel like they're at that medical mission too. You know what? It is a powerful story, and now you're connecting with her. You're not the doctor in this scenario. You are the person there who's needing help. The other two photographic examples on the outsides are shots of looking upwards. So you can see these are dancers. I'm showing that they have power, and that dance right there is a powerful dance. The one on the far right, this man just lost his leg because of a KK accident, all right? And you know what? He's overcome that. He's showing joy, but we wanted to show even more strength, so we did an upward angle in shooting that photograph. Point of view, this one's really cool. I like this one a lot. A good example of this that's not even on the screen is a drone. How many people have seen drone imagery, right? Bird's eye view, that's giving you something you've never seen before as a human. We can't fly. So it's really, really interesting to us to see a bird's eye view of something to give us an entirely different perspective and make us think. Now, that's what I'm saying about that first point. Viewers, you're not ideally looking at that, so you're kind of giving them a new perspective. Great examples, children and animals. If you're shooting from a child's perspective, like this bottom photo here, the bottom photo, this child is looking at the water well, but you're looking at it from his lens and his perspective. That top photograph, you're not feeling like you're in the audience there, you're feeling like you're the speaker. And maybe you've never been a speaker, but even if you see this photograph, you're thinking of yourself as a speaker and you're putting yourself in their shoes. Colors are really, really interesting as well. So they can make a subject pop out within a frame, right? And become clearly recognizable. So like this top photo here, pink and red and orange, if you put that against a teal or a blue background, that subject is going to pop. It's going to have high contrast without you having to edit any contrast in post-production. You can also do where the colors are very similar, showing that they are really part of their environment there. It might be a white lab coat in a white science laboratory, right? It might be research, it's showing that they're there, and that's kind of giving you that connection between the subject and that place. So like I said, blue or teal is often a really good background color. I just want to highlight that. So if you ever want to make your subject pop, that's a really big one that people use in cinema and in photography all the time. Color can also be a very important factor in providing feeling and emotion, right? So a blue hue or a cold hue. Blue hues look cold, right? So a blue might look kind of like a winter. It might look snowy. It might look damp. I mean, it's those things for you. Orange feels like warmth. Orange, you are reminded of, psychologically, of the sunlight, and that's going to provide warmth to your photo. It's going to light and airy. If something's really bright and colorful there, it's going to feel hopeful and happy. If it's dark, green, and it looks like it's in the shadows and everything, it's dark and moody. It's providing this kind of deeper emotion there. I also want to mention that the absence of color is also a color. If you're not using color within your photograph, that can be done very intentionally. People using black and white to really showcase their subject for a portrait or something like that, that is done very, very intentionally to provide, that is the one thing we want you to focus on is the subject. Do not focus on any colors there. The absence of color is absolutely part of composition. So that's concluding this presentation, but I do want to say that the rules of composition are not actually rules. I stated that they were, all right? But once you know those, you can also break them to help yourself as a photographer. If you're doing something on purpose, if it's intentional, that is you using composition in a completely different way. So think of them more as guidelines than actual rules, all right? It's also better to tell a good story, a great story, than to focus on composition. So don't think you have to have perfect composition for every single photograph if you're trying to tell a story. Go out there and try to tell that story and try to take the best photograph, but don't focus on perfection when it comes to composition. You want to tell that story. You want to tell a good story rather than focusing on it. All right. So that's the end of this one, talking about photographic composition. Who found that helpful? Yeah? Who's going to take something away from that? Maybe on their iPhone or on their Galaxy or Android. Who's going to use that? Who's maybe going to add grid lines to their phone? Yeah, I got a lot of hands here. All right. Well, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Don Geiger. He's a phenomenal writer, and I've learned a lot from him just in the last 2 years of knowing him.
Good morning. My name is Don Geiger, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. This is my third time to be in Nigeria, to be in Umuahia, and it's a pleasure to be here. I have felt very welcomed by everybody, and I hope to come back again in the future. Today we're going to talk about, well, let me introduce myself so I provide some context about why I'm talking about writing. So I started my career as a newspaper journalist. I worked for a number of years as a reporter and a newspaper editor. Then I started working for corporate America as a writer and a storyteller and a communications manager. And I've been doing that. So I've been writing in some form or fashion for more than 40 years. I've written for, as a journalist, I covered many, many interesting stories. As a corporate communications person, as a corporate writer, I have worked with people from some of the CEOs and some of the leaders of some of the world's largest companies, down to people on the front line, people in working with humanitarian organizations and nonprofits in various places around the world, helping tell their stories. So whether you're studying journalism, and I bet a few of you here are studying journalism, right? Maybe? Public relations, broadcasting, media production, or communications, you are in the right place. Because in today's world, clear and compelling writing is not optional. It's essential. No matter your platform, no matter what story you're telling, the fundamentals of writing still matter. And this session will give you a few tools that you can use to sharpen your writing, strengthen your voice, and reach people. Let me begin with a question. What do the most powerful leaders, the best entrepreneurs, and the most respected influencers have in common? It's not money, it's not fame, it's communication. Words build trust, change minds, and even move nations. Think about people like Chinua Achebe, the Nigerian novelist and poet. His words have changed minds and changed cultures. But it's not just literary giants. Think about everyday professionals, doctors, engineers, marketers, tech innovators. If they can't communicate their ideas clearly and in writing, they limit their influence. Think about students. If you can't write and communicate clearly, you won't be as successful as a student and later in your career or vocation. Writing gives shapes to our thoughts. It helps us think. It brings clarity. It helps us explain, persuade, defend, celebrate, and even challenge. And in this social media-driven world of TikTok and Instagram feeds, writers craft the threads and the ads. Writing is your voice when you're not in the room. And we're overwhelmed with words today. Think about your own life as you go through your day. If you're like me, you get texts, WhatsApp messages, emails, social media messages, and Slack or other messages constantly. There is more competition for our attention. Videos, movies, television, family, friends, work, school. And the list goes on and on. As writers, that's part of our competition. So as a result of this competition, we spend less and less time reading. We spend, on average, and get this, only about 26 seconds reading a piece of content before we move on to something else. On the web, it's even shorter. We spend, on average, just 15 seconds on every web page we visit. So the writing we do for the various audiences needs to be well written, crisp, and on target. So let's talk about the foundation of good writing. Strong writing, like strong architecture, is built on pillars. There are 5: clarity, purpose, audience, structure, and tone. Clarity means making your message easy to understand. Don't make people guess what you're trying to say. If your writing is foggy, readers will give up and go do something else. Purpose is about intention. Ask yourself, why am I writing this? If you're trying to inform, don't confuse. If you're trying to inspire, don't bore your readers. Audience is key. Who are you writing for? Classmates? A professor? A government official? A client? A stranger on X or Twitter? What you say and how you say it should change based on who is reading. Structure helps the reader follow your logic. Without a main point, without a map, your reader can get lost. Lead with the main point, then guide them through your argument or story. Finally, tone is the personality of your writing. Are you confident, casual, humble, sarcastic? Tone sets the mood. Match your tone to the platform. Get it right, and readers will stay with you. We are wired for story. Our brains light up when we hear a good one. We are bombarded with information, and our brains try to find the meaning in it all, pulling out what's important and then constructing a story about it. So what makes a strong story? Every compelling story needs a hero. This is the person who's on a quest, faced with long odds, has a mountain to climb or an obstacle to overcome. It could be a physical obstacle or it could be an internal battle. This tension and conflict create the stakes that pull you through the story. And then the conflict is resolved. The audience feels emotion, happiness, sorrow, relief, even anger. My wife and I recently watched the new Mission Impossible movie starring Tom Cruise. Have you seen it? I won't spoil it for you, but I think it's safe to say that like all the previous Mission Impossible films, our hero is on a quest, faces lots of obstacles and enemies, and there's lots and lots of action. The movie, like all good action movies, follows this narrative arc. As you tell your story, the same message and tone won't work everywhere. The story that you might tell in a university essay won't work on a blog. The caption for an Instagram post won't work in a newspaper column. If you're writing for social media, you have 3 seconds to grab their attention, if they give you that long. That means short sentences, great visuals, hashtags, and maybe even emojis. If you're writing a news story for a print newspaper, you need to lead with the facts, follow journalistic structure, and stay objective. You can be more detailed in print, but please respect your audience and their time. For a speech, your writing should sound natural when spoken. Academic writing must be formal, focused, and backed by evidence. Great writers know how to adapt. If you don't understand your platform, if you don't understand your audience, your writing will fall flat. So ask yourself these 3 questions before you write. Who's reading this? Where are they reading it? And what do they expect? As you prepare to write your story or paper, you need to become an expert on whatever topic you're writing about. Don't assume that you know everything. You don't. Research your topic. Read. Watch videos. Talk to other people. Do you need to conduct formal interviews? If so, you need to be prepared for that. Decide how you're going to develop your story. Why should your audience care? Do you need technical depth and credibility? Are you trying to persuade? Do you need a human interest angle to make your story emotional and compelling? Because as you write your story, you've got maybe 3 seconds to capture your audience's attention. That's how long it takes our brains to decide if it likes what you've just clicked on. If your audience thinks they're going to be bored, they'll move on and they'll go do something else besides read your story. And we don't want that, do we? So the first sentence in your piece, what we in journalism call the lead, has to capture and hold your attention fast. Have you ever read the lead of a story and instantly wanted to keep reading? That's the power of a strong opening. On the other hand, we've all read a story's lead, found it boring, and moved on to something else. That happens to me all the time, and that's the risk of a poor lead. Whether you're writing a feature article or a social media post, your lead is the hook. It's your chance to grab your reader's attention and say, stop scrolling, read this, it's worth your time. Make your readers want to read the second sentence, and then the third sentence, and all the way to the end of your piece. You have to propel them through your story, and you have to earn their attention. Here's an example. This is a pretty simple example, but I hope you see the difference. The top example is a weak lead. This article is about how students are affected by school closures. If I saw that, I'd move on. A much stronger lead would be, when classrooms closed, Fatima started teaching her younger siblings under a mango tree. One is generic. People might give it 1 second before they scroll on. The other lead paints a picture. We can see Fatima, maybe a teenager, under that tree teaching her siblings. It creates curiosity, emotion, and surprise. Make your reader want to know more. Let's talk about some of the traps that make your writing weak. The good news is that every writer makes these mistakes. I've made them many times. The better news is that you can fix them. It just takes a lot of editing. Mistake number 1 is rambling. Long sentences packed with too many ideas confuse readers. The fix is to keep it short. Use 1 idea per sentence. Mistake number 2 is trying to sound fancy or smart. Some people might write, the committee commenced its deliberation upon receipt of the memorandum. You could just say the committee started reviewing the memo. Be clear, not clever. Use simple, strong words. Mistake number 3 is using the passive voice. The application was rejected by the office is passive. The office rejected the application is active. It uses an active verb, and it's much stronger. We're going to talk about using the right word and the wrong word here in a second, but the solution is to use the right word all the time. Take your time with this. So let's talk about the importance of using the right word. Choosing the right word is one of the most important, powerful tools a writer has. Precise words convey clear meaning, set the tone, and evoke the right emotions in the reader's mind. The difference between a vague word and a vivid, specific one can turn a dull sentence into a memorable line. Good word choice also shows respect for your audience's time by making your writing concise and impactful. In short, the right word makes your message stronger, your style sharper, and your story more compelling. Mark Twain was a very well-known author and humorist in the U.S. He had a famous saying about choosing the right word. Do you all know what a lightning bug is? Do you have those here? They're bugs that during the summer they have this little thing that lights up on them when they fly around. So his quote is, "The difference between the almost right word and the right word is really a large matter. It's the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning." This quote perfectly captures how the precise word can electrify writing, while a near miss can dull its impact. So take your time and get the right word. Here's a simple example that shows how the right word can make a big difference. Here's a sentence using the almost right word. She walked into the room. And here's a sentence using the right word. She strode into the room. Here's why it matters. Walked is general. It doesn't tell us much. Strode is precise. It suggests confidence, purpose, or even authority. Choosing a word like strode instead of walked paints a clearer picture and adds subtle meaning to the action. A stronger, more specific verb or noun can transform an ordinary sentence into one that shows personality and keeps the reader engaged. Here's a secret that most beginning writers don't realize. The real work in writing starts after the first draft. As I mentioned, great writing is the result of great editing. Your first draft is just wet clay. You still have to shape and mold it. So step one, at least this is my process, I let it rest. I'll get a first draft and I'll walk away for 15 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. As much as possible, I'll put the draft away for the day and come back to it with fresh eyes the next day. Then edit and rewrite and edit and rewrite again and be merciless. Step two, read it aloud to yourself. Go into a room by yourself and read it out loud, making notes as you go. Read it out loud again. If you stumble, so will your readers. Step three, cut at least 10%, probably more. Tighten your sentences. Remove unnecessary words, unnecessary sentences, and unnecessary paragraphs. I always ask at least one colleague at my work to read my articles and provide constructive critiques and edits. Editing is what turns a good idea into great communication. If you skip it, you're leaving meaning on the table. So let's look at an article I was asked to edit a couple of years ago. This article was about Hassan, who is a refugee from Chad, came to the U.S., went to college, and got hired as an intern at Texas Instruments, which is the company where I work. He eventually got hired as a full-time electrical engineer, and I still see him regularly. Here's the original story. The original headline was Hassan's Journey from Refugee to TI Intern. I saw that, and I yawned. The subhead original subhead was, his resume was as unconventional, former camel herder, livestock shepherd, and refugee. Today, he's an engineering intern in our company with aspirations of using his experience to make an impact in his hometown in Chad. And here's the way the lead reads. I'll read it to you in case you can't see it. In 2013, Hassan left his refugee camp in Egypt to start a new life in the United States. He had endured a civil war, spent years traveling with a caravan of camel herders as a teenager, and had no formal education. Today, Hassan is an electrical engineering student, standout cross-country runner, and one of more than 2,400 interns shaping the future of our company. To outsiders, Hassan's life may seem like an anomaly, but for Hassan, who is an engineering intern on our SC packaging team, the marathon of twists and turns in his journey have made him successful today. That's not terrible, but it could have been a lot stronger and a lot more compelling. I helped interview him for the story, so I had the background to do a good editing job on this article. So I went to work editing. You can see a part of my markup in Microsoft Word here, and there were a lot of changes. Here's the article as it was published, and that's a picture of Hassan there. The new headline is, A Remarkable Journey from Refugee to Engineering Intern. Here's the subhead. His resume is unconventional. Shepherd, camel herder, refugee, and university student. But Hassan is now on the cusp of a new career as an electrical engineer and hopes to one day share his expertise to make an impact in his community in Chad. And here's the rewritten extended lead. And listen for the tension and how that tension is resolved. The interrogation in Tobruk, Libya, marked a turning point in Hassan's life. He had just finished yet another treacherous walk, herding hundreds of camels across the Sahara Desert from his native Chad to Libya when he found himself in the midst of civil war. The detention and interrogation by Libyan guards was unexpected. Here's a quote. The guards took my friend and me in a room and asked us a lot of questions, he said. It was very scary. One of the guards was pointing a gun at Hassan and his friend, then teenagers, were released after convincing the guards that they were simple camel caravanners and not partisans in the Civil War. They immediately headed east toward Egypt and a United Nations refugee camp, where they spent the next 3 years. Hassan's journey through life, from shepherd with no formal education to camel herder, refugee, university student, elite collegiate runner, and his life today on the cusp of a new career as an electrical engineer, is remarkable by any standard. And it goes on. Do you see the elements of storytelling? We have a hero who is faced with a challenge. There is tension as he's confronted by the guards. He overcomes the challenge, resolves the problem, and succeeds. We can feel his emotions of fear, relief, and eventual happiness. So let's get practical. Here's what strong writing looks like across 4 different, very different platforms. News. You need to lead with the most important facts. Be balanced and clear. Quote your sources accurately. If you're writing marketing material, highlight a benefit. Make the reader feel emotion. Include a call to action, such as buy, subscribe, or learn more. If you're writing for social media, use powerful verbs. Ask questions. Be conversational and interactive. Use strong visuals and hashtags wisely. If you're writing for academia, be formal. Cite your sources. Stay focused. You don't have to master every platform at once, but learn the differences. Study great examples and practice, practice, practice. You may be wondering if your voice, the stories you develop and tell, can make a difference. My answer is yes. Your voice matters. There are stories all around you. There are lots of stories sitting under this tent today. Nigeria is full of stories of innovation, creativity, hardship, success, and inspiration. You can find and tell those stories. You can be a writer who shines a light on stories that need to be told, stories that encourage, inspire, and drive change. Don't wait until you're famous. Start now. So let's wrap up with a few thoughts that you can carry with you after you leave today. First, writing well is a superpower. It's your edge in careers ranging from law to technology to media. Second, authenticity builds connections and credibility. Whether you're writing an article or a social media post, sincerity wins. Third, writing is a craft. That means you get better with practice, and that means you have to practice. Read great writing, imitate it, rewrite it, find your voice. You don't have to be perfect, at least not yet. You just have to keep writing. I have no doubt whatsoever that some of the up-and-coming storytellers from Africa are here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our keynote speakers. The first lecture we had was on planning to succeed, design that connects visual principles for better communication, and that was taken by the Associate Professor of Cinema and Television Arts at Lund University, North Carolina, Dr. Vic Costello. Thank you so much. We have learned so much today, And I'm sure you've put something down that would help you in the world of media and communications. We also had a second lecture, Visual Storytelling Through Photographic Composition by Jeff Wilson. And that too, he is a photographer and a story others has been more bad than you are. But through your words in writing, you can bring the world together, you can bring nations together, you can drive hope, you can educate people, you can teach them on the necessary things they need to know to make the world a better place for all of us, where peace can reign and where all humans can live in harmony. So thank you so much. With a round of applause, I want us to appreciate our keynote speakers for the work well done. Thank you so much. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much, sirs. That was a great presentation. Now, would ask all the ones over the lobby to please reconvene so that we can continue with our next program. Thank you so much. The DJ, please help us with an interlude.
We all are gathered back again to take the opening ceremony. We'll take the opening ceremony of this event. To let us rest a while, we will be taking some interlude, after which we'll be listening to NBC. I'd like to make welcome the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Gregory University, Uturu, Professor Uoma Uche. Can we welcome him? I'd like us also to make welcome the Zonal Director Southeast of the NBC, Mrs. Ijo Matthew Obodo. Can we put our hands together for her? We shall be taking a goodwill message from the NBC. After that, we will take the keynote address. This keynote address will span for 25 minutes, and it will be delivered by Troy Miller, President and CEO, National Religious Broadcasters, that's NRB. After Troy Miller's address, we'll be listening to our Lord Bishop, the President and founder of Vision Africa, and then we'll take it from there. I'd like you to know that after this opening ceremony, we shall return to our various classes and continue from there. We are here today to learn. Please remember that this event will continue and end tomorrow. So today will not be the last of the event. Tomorrow will be a more intensive session, or we'll witness more intensive sessions. A whole lot to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So by the time we are done, everyone who participated will be exiting this place with your certificate. You add it to your CV and you keep learning. Learning, they say, never ends.
In this country. So this is the monitoring body, the overseeing body or corporation or firm, if you like, for all broadcasters. And so we need to hear them. We need to hear what they will say so that you don't fall a victim to some of the things you shouldn't do. And of course, get inquiry or a form of punishment. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like us to make welcome the Coordinating Director, Broadcast Monitoring, National Broadcasting Commission, Mrs. Susan Obi, for her goodwill message.
Very good afternoon to you all. On behalf of the National Broadcasting Commission, I would like to extend our welcome to you and our appreciation to your being here. Over the years, we have seen the Vision Africa Radio demonstrate this commitment to excellence, the commitment to training leaders, broadcasters, who would truly recognize their vision and impact on delivering that vision. This is a good message, sir. Sorry, it's not, I'm not talking about what you should do as a regulator. I mean, what we do as a commission. It's not a time to talk about sanctions and rules. But it's basically to share with us that we identify what Vision Africa is doing. And particularly, we are glad that Vision has sustained this training program. Today's theme is the theme for this year: image makers, shaping culture, inspiring change through media. And truly, it's a very passionate theme that resonates with us. It's a theme that we should all identify with. It's something that we should think through as we live here. Our roles as broadcasters. What do we do? I talk about image making. Sometimes we don't realize the import of the mic we hold or how powerful a tool it is. But when we realize the fact that in the code, in Nigerian broadcasting, we talk about the fact that by reason of broadcasting, you're exposing your audience to information that would help them make informed decisions, informed choices. So you realize that there's a responsibility, trust on you as soon as you hold that mic. So when you have the mic and you have a program, you don't just come on air without being intentional about what you do. Broadcasting is not an all-commerce profession. It is something that it's a profession that has responsibilities. And I'm hoping that after now, when we go back to our various offices, that we realize that we help people make informed choices. And it's not just those who have the pulpit or the politicians who are able to influence decisions. By reason of the choice we put out, we help people make decisions. So we should be intentional about the information we are putting out. Are there information that will help us? Are there people that will mark people? Are there information that is right, authentic? How will it help those who are listening to you? So it's talking about us being intentional, being deliberate about what we're putting out. And we also need to do our due research before we take hold of the mic. So as we leave today, I just want to appreciate all of us who are present, and we look forward to having more engagement with you in the course of this program. Thank you all.
you very much, Mrs. Susan, and thank you, NBC, for honoring this invitation. You were here yesterday, and you're here again today. That shows the importance you attach to this event and to training of broadcasters. Thank you. One more time, a round of applause for her. I'd like us to make welcome Troy Miller. Troy Miller, wherever you are, can you please come in? And before he arrives, I'd like us to take an interlude of music, please. DJ, thank you. Dr. Alex Chioma Oti, represented by the Honorable Commissioner for Information, Prince Obey Kano. A round of applause for him, please. While we're still standing, we shall take the national anthem. We shall take the first stanza of the national anthem. We will take the Abia anthem in Igbo. Then we will take the American anthem. DJ, over to you. Thank you very much. Please be seated. The DJ hasn't got the American anthem, so maybe when he gets it, we'll find a way to incorporate it. Thank you very much. The governor of Abia State, the father of the state, our mentor, friend and brother, the Mr. Project of our time, the man who is interested in living Abia better than he met it, the man who has vowed that Abia will be ranked among the first in the Committee of States. Dr. Alex Chioma Oti, ably represented by the right person, the Honorable Commissioner for Information at the State, Prince Obey Kano. The President and Founder, Vision Africa, Dr. Sandy Ndubo Onoha. Let me use Dr. Chuck Pollack to recognize all our partners who traveled, flew in to be with us today. The Director of the NBC, Mrs. Susan Obi. Let me use Professor Oroma Uche, to represent everyone who is from the media, from the academic world. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, distinguished students, everyone who's gathered here today, it is indeed with a heart of joy that we welcome you to this year's Media Institute training of the Vision Africa. This is an opportunity that everyone can access to get better, especially if you are in the media world, no matter the aspect of media you find yourself in. Vision Africa always brings in seasoned trainers to talk to individuals, students, media practitioners from all over the state and possibly beyond. Your Excellency, sir, before you stepped in, we had taken the opening prayer. We had also recognized our guests. We had taken some lectures. Very interesting, very educating time that we spent together with our resource persons on media, bringing up various topics. And we had to reconvene to welcome you, knowing that you do not have all the time to spend with us. In fact, it's a privilege that you are here today to honor this invitation. Your presence has added color to what we are doing, and that shows how important this administration takes training and retraining of your staff. It is on that note, Your Excellency, that one more time, we welcome you to this training and ask that God will bless you. Can we put our hands together one more time to welcome him? If you permit, Your Excellency, we shall take the keynote address. And the topic is the influence of image makers, media's call to shape culture and promote the welfare of nations. This will run for just 25 minutes, Your Excellency, and it will be handled by the President and CEO, National Religious Broadcasters. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcome Troy Miller.
What a privilege it is to be with you today. And I want to begin by thanking our host and all of our honored guests. It is an honor to be here in Nigeria with the Nigerian people. I can tell you this is my first time, and already your warmth, hospitality, and deep faith are evident in everything I've seen and heard, and it's a joy to be with you. And thank you, sir, for being here today to be a part of this. And from everything I've seen that's going on in this state, it is just wonderful. So I serve as the president and CEO of the National Religious Broadcasters, known as NRB for short. We're a U.S.-based association of thousands of Christian communicators around the world. Our members include radio and television stations, podcasters, documentary, filmmakers, publishers, authors, writers, churches, digital, all things digital, YouTubers, Instagrammers, TikToks, you name it. If you're communicating today in the U.S. and you're a Christian, you're probably involved with NRB. We have folks that do broadcasts from London to Lagos to Los Angeles to Sydney to proclaim Christ through media. NRB calls you the family, calls you family. So that's why I really liked this year's theme, Image Makers. Shaping culture and inspiring change through media couldn't be more timely. I'm going to make a pretty bold statement here. I believe we are living in the greatest time for humanity. Let me say that again. I would believe that we are living in the greatest time of human history. We are living through a global shift right now. Media has become the most dominant discipling force on the planet. It doesn't just tell people what's happening. It tells us what matters. It defines what's normal, what's admirable, what's shameful, what's true. In previous generations, those frameworks were handed down through the home, the church, the school, the local community. Today, they're shaped by screens. And so the question becomes, who is shaping the imagination of the next generation? Because here's the truth. Culture follows imagination. And imagination is formed by what people see, hear, and repeat. That makes our work as media professionals more than just technical. It makes our work almost spiritual. Just as liturgy forms the soul on Sunday, media liturgies, the daily scroll, the binge watch, the meme, the social media post, they shape the soul Monday through Saturday. They lead us into envy or gratitude, cynicism or hope. You know, many of our faiths believe that God created man in his own image, and then he gave us a task of reflecting his character into creation. We are to be made the image of truth of God in this world. So what does it mean when we talk about image makers? We're not just talking about storytellers or designers. We're talking about people shaping what it means to dwell on earth together. And in today's world, that's done through media. The things we watch and listen to do more than entertain. They elicit emotions. Training a nation to either lament rightly or rejoice righteously. Similarly, your camera angles, your font choices, your interview questions, they convey a worldview before anybody sees or hears a word. Let's be honest. The world around us has understood this power far better than we have. Hollywood, Silicon Valley, and corporate advertisers aren't just creating content, they're creating categories of belief. They know that if they can control the image, then they can control the narrative. And if they control the narrative, then they shape values, morality, and ethics that make up a community. But here's the good news. There's a new generation of image makers, men and women like you, who aren't afraid to speak the truth, to tell better stories, and to remind the world that there is a right from wrong, a good from evil, and that there is love from hate. At NRB, we recently partnered with a group in America called the Barna Group. They're a survey group. They're a very prestigious survey organizations. And we wanted to see the influence that media was having, and this particular Christian media was having. And we were encouraged by some of the findings. 64%, that's 2/3 of Generation Z, that's 18 to 27-year-olds, 2/3 of them were listening to Christian media on a regular basis. That number was even a higher number. That number was higher than millennials at 58%, Gen X, or boomers. And that included Christian television, radio, streaming, content online, devotional. Gen Z, despite being digitally naive and deeply influenced by a secular culture, is still searching. They're tuning in. They're asking questions. And that leads me, that tells me that there's something important. The next generations They're not lost. They're looking. But the question is, will they find anything worth trusting? Here's where you come in. Because media doesn't just tell the truth, because media that doesn't tell the truth won't be trusted. Media that mimics the world lacks moral clarity and won't shape anyone. What we need is not more noise, we need light. Light travels farther than darkness. A single candle can be seen 1.6 kilometers away in a clear night. Imagine a luminous network of candles all across Nigeria, all across Africa, South America, and around the world, broadcasting with unified conviction. We could light up entire continents. So, how do we use media to shape the culture and promote the welfare of nations? First, by forming the moral imagination of people. Media presents a vision of human dignity, of family, of justice, of forgiveness, of truth, anchored in the unchanging love that we have for fellow human beings. It doesn't just change bad policy, it cultivates better people. It helps individuals live wisely, govern justly, and relate generously. And in doing so, it strengthens the social fabric of entire nations. Where these truths are proclaimed through media, the soil of society becomes fertile for peace, integrity, and flourishing. There's a Christian proverb that tells us, righteousness exalts a nation, and righteousness can spread through every format and steward, through a headline, through a documentary, through a 3-minute podcast, through a television special, through a media post, through a social media post. This is no small assignment. This is work. And if media can form the minds and hearts to reflect the mind of the righteous, then it can also form communities that flourish. Media must be more than inspirational, it must be formative. More than relevant, it must be rooted. More than emotional, it must be eternal. We need media that shapes the imagination towards good. It trains the conscience towards righteousness, that awakens the mind toward truth, and that points the heart to love. To do that, we first must confront the hard truth. Far too much of the media has settled for sentiment over substance. We've traded clarity for comfort, depth for dopamine, and we wonder why we're not shaping the culture anymore. If we want to recover influence, we must recover our convictions. Influence feeds on conviction the way athletes feed on protein. Without rich convictions, our creativity becomes academic and fleshly, frail. The great philosopher and Christian philosopher Augustine wrote, "A story is a mighty thing when truth is its soul." Let's give our stories soul. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind." That transformation happens through truth. Truth repeated in words and images. Truth taught through disciplined engagement. Truth confirmed through moral imagination. That is the real battlefield of our time, imagination, and media is the front line. It's not an afterthought, it's a core calling. Because we do not occupy this space. If we don't occupy this space, someone else will. And when the space is filled with lies, confusions, and half-truths, people suffer. We've seen this in the U.S. and around the world. There is no moral compass. Where there's no moral compass, there is moral collapse. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no truth, power fills the vacuum. And where the righteous go silent, the culture writes its own story. We must speak into the chaos and remind people who they are, tell the truth in love, point to hope that cannot be canceled, cannot be demonetized, and cannot be taken offline. Hope has always traveled the borrowed media, parchment scrolls, Roman road, Gutenberg press, software antennas, digital fiber optic cables. Each era presents a new vessel, but the treasure inside stays the same. Let me give you a few practical examples of the impact of media. This is pretty stunning. On average, people spend a staggering 8.5 hours per day engaged in media in the U.S., according to Nielsen ratings in 2013. That includes everything from TV, television, through apps and borrowing, through apps and browsing through the web. Globally, 6 hours and 35 minutes online, 3 hours and 8 minutes watching TV, 2 hours and 20 minutes on social media. Plus time gaming, radio, and podcasts. Add it all up and it's clear. Media isn't just a part of our day, it is our day. Right now, there are more than 5 billion internet users around the world. If we're not meeting them online with truth, someone else is meeting them with deception. We must be present, we must be excellent, and we must not be afraid to speak the truth. So let's close with this. A few things here. Your work matters. It matters deeply. Whether you're producing a podcast, editing a video, broadcasting a sermon, designing a social media campaign, writing a script, you are shaping hearts and minds. You are forming culture. You are